Hello and welcome to the Slow Ready Podcast, a casual drive into the music and culture of Goose. I'm Mike,
And I'm Alex.
and we are back to discuss Goose's epic year-ending run in Austin, Texas for the New Year's holiday. As always, the best way to keep up with us is on our socials at Slow Ready Pod, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X. We are pretty much everywhere. So also slowreadypod at gmail.com. So please come and follow us, hang out. Definitely the best way to stay in touch with our next episodes and everything that we have planned great for you guys. Before we get into our main topics, we'd like to get into the news and notes from this week with Goose in our first segment, Hot Tea. So coming up, we have Dead Ahead again in Mexico. Bobby Weir's Dead Ahead at the Moon Palace in Cancun, Mexico, of course. It's going to be January 9th through 13th, featuring Rick, and then a lot of other great artists: Sturgill Simpson, Jeff Trementi, Oteil Burbridge, Don Was, and Jay Lane. Also got Trampled by Turtles, Neil Francis, just to name a few. So really big event. It was very successful last year. I know a lot of friends went and had an amazing time. Pretty exciting stuff, right, Alex?
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I wish I had planned my January better because I'll be down at the Moon Palace for Dave and Tim in a few weeks. So hopefully Rick stays a few weeks.
That would be absolutely awesome because they are really close together. So who knows? Maybe you'll get lucky and he'll stay there for a sit-in because that ice has been broken already. So that would be amazing.
It's the sit-in we deserve after Soulshine, right?
Totally. And Rick was down in Mexico early to guest with Mount Joy on January 4th. Played guitar on I Know You Rider and Let Loose, which I believe he played on Let Loose before, right?
I'm not sure. I'll have to double check that. I know that he's guested with them before. I just can't remember what the songs were. But Mount Joy's great. Rick's great.
Yeah.
It was awesome to listen back to the clips I saw. So great time.
Yeah, and they're clearly getting more acquainted because they obviously had Matt Quinn from Mount Joy guest at the show that you were at in Philly over the summer. So obviously that's still going strong. And so not a lot of other news and notes as we're just kind of getting started in the new year here. So with no further ado, we'll dive into our main topic, which is called the Flow Down. And for this week, the big topic is New Year's in Austin. So Goose started off December 30th for night one of this 2-night run. And set one kind of starts off with a surprise with a big modern opener, which was unfinished, notably. And then we had an Animal, Dr. Darkness, Draconian Meter Maid, Silver Rising, Jive 2, and Arrow. And then set two picks up with Hot Love and the Lazy Poet, a really solid Arcadia, Redbird, cover of Lowrider by War, which was the first time played, and Sinnerman, and then into an encore of Give It Time. So lots going on. Why don't we start with the first set? What jumps out at you the most here, Alex? What are some of your highlights?
So really interesting set listing to start off. I think that they took some notes from Bingo, and sometimes you see the band kind of start slow and play a few songs with, more defined jams or solos. Now they went right into big modern. Really cool jam on this one, actually. Softer jumping point into this, and a kind of familiar but cool sounding wah groove and from the clav by Peter, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're transitioning right into Animal, and it was a really just like perfect transition. So that really stuck out to start. And the interesting thing I think is, Animal's a clav heavy song, but with the way they transitioned it, it makes you really focus on that when you're getting into Animal. So it almost made it seem like it sticks out more than normal, and it's just kind of cool to just see like the way that they introduce things into jams and transitions. It makes you focus on parts of the instrumentation that you might not focus on normally. So that really struck me early, and then we can get into this Draconian Meter Maid, which I know you have a lot of thoughts on, Mike. So
Yeah, I definitely, that's going to probably be what I run my mouth on about the most, but I definitely agree with the big modern opener. It was awesome. A little bit disappointed at the time that they didn't finish it, but we all kind of suspected that it was going to pop back up later, and it did. So, spoiler alert. I really do love what you were talking about, that mood between big modern and the transition into Animal. I totally agree. They're definitely setting the table more, and kind of like exactly like you said it perfectly, kind of setting you up as the listener to, what to key in on. But Yeah, this Draconian, I've definitely listened to it more than I have anything else from this run. I'm not going to say like it's definitively the best thing from the run, but it's definitely what I'm going to be listening to the most consistently moving forward. It has a gorgeous spaced out vibe to start, really melodic playing from everyone, but especially Trevor, which I know we say that ad nauseum, but the dude is the man. And Rick and Trevor both kind of teased the vocal hook from Draconian a little bit. And then when Pete moves to the clav, this jam just turns up to like a fucking 15. I mean, he's never played the clav more furious that I can remember. I mean, it's just a million miles an hour. And I really can't even begin to figure out or decipher how Rick is able to just as fast move in and out of the clav fork there. Cotter is just absolutely relentless. And like at its core, it's a very simple kind of ping pong between the 1 and the 5 chord, like 2 measures each, but it keeps like escalating to where you're really feeling that push and pull, the swing like really, really heavy. And it also gets a lot of like really underappreciated work from Jeff, where he's really highlighting on the guitar that swing back and forth to really keep that in focus while all the chaos of everyone else's instrumentation is going on. It's just, it's only like 14 minutes, so it's not going on the playlist, but man, did it blow my mind. And this was a really exciting new place to be in. And the last thing I'll say is, it was a weeknight. I had to work the next day, so I was watching this show in bed, and this jam was so good that I was dancing around the house for the entirety of it. So, golly, this Draconian was something.
Yeah, don't let that 14-minute song length fool you. It's my main takeaway. Just like you said, Peter continued that clav party from the first two songs for sure. Dancier, totally different space than we're used to with Draconian. We were getting Chariots of Fire on this thing like a month and a half ago, and now we're having a funk dance party with this thing. So I thought, again, backtracking a little bit, we got that clav funk party in a different way, almost in like a Welcome to Delta way with Animal, and then we get into this dance party, and then all of a sudden we're taking it down at the end of this jam and doing another seamless transition into Silver Rising. So that's really just the main highlight to me outside of the jams themselves from this set list. Especially set one was the transitions were just on point per usual. Kind of a nice encapsulation of 2024 and how tight this band has gotten.
Yeah, great call out. We've been talking, I know you and I, like repeatedly throughout this whole fall tour and into Goosemas about just how ridiculous the transition game is right now. And it's just, it keeps leveling up. And it's insane to say, but a lot of times lately, some of the biggest highlights from the set list just simply how they move from one idea to the next, whether it's in the jam or in the song. So yeah, and then also great call out about the Delta, because I feel like that pops up as a theme in like 4 or 5 different places over these 2 nights. So I really felt like Delta was everywhere this weekend here. So
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I brought it up for that reason. Yeah, I definitely wanted to
yeah,
highlight that because it stuck out and it was very notable in Animal, especially.
yeah, totally. And then Silver Rising, it's always an epic experience. I think Jive 2 brought like some much needed funk to kind of like break up this set list a little bit. Definitely like kind of bingo vibes, like you said. Like this order of set list is not exactly what I would call typical. And then last but not least from set one, this arrow is super, super awesome for the vast majority of it, right up until there's a ripcord when it's starting to get really, really good that I think probably pierced your and my soul at the exact same time. Cause oh my gosh, that arrow was really taking off.
Yes, it was. And we have completely neglected and failed to mention the theme of this night, which this arrow fit perfectly with the guys coming out in these eyes wide shut, creepy masquerade masks and cloaks. And there's candles on the stage and chandeliers hanging from Getty's arrangement and string lights in the back. And it just, we're totally not in a cult vibes, but very culty vibes. So this arrow got really dark, and what could have been with this jam? They got started a little late on this night. I don't know what was going on, so clearly time was a concern here, and it was getting so interesting and dark, and Peter was ripping into his marimba, and Rick's chugging along with these kind of creepy, fuzzy chords and a little shreddy, but mostly just adding texture. And then all of a sudden, we're just ripping back into Arrow, and it was like, man, this thing could have been a contender for like one of the best jams they've done this month. let alone this entire fall if they just had 5 more minutes on this thing. So really, really stunk that the time was a concern here, but still a great arrow and a good time. I just wish it was 10 minutes longer.
Yeah, you and me both. I totally agree. Like 3 to 5 minutes more on this thing, and it's on the playlist. It was so dark and moody and great, and I would maybe go so far as to say this ripcord hurt me the most of anything recently. It was just like, oh man, we were getting there, but also, yeah, totally my bad on that fault. I'm always set list on the brain first and foremost. But yeah, circling back to the theme of the night, you and I texted each other within, I don't know, a millisecond of them coming onto stage, the exact same thing, eyes wide shut vibes. So that was really cool and hilarious to see them all come out and, as they always do, commit 1000% to a theme. Saw some things on the internet where people were saying that they were like passing out like clues and code words from the movie and things like that. So
Yep.
I mean, Goose just like consistently raised the bar on stuff like this.
I mean, just insane and actually kind of horrifying. Like they looked genuinely creepy, like in the movie. I'm pretty sure Trevor is the next villain of the new Star Wars Eyes Wide Shut crossover movie coming in 2029.
Yeah, that would be apropos. So moving into set two, we've got Hot Love in its customary opener spot, and then this Arcadia, really, really good stuff. I know I messaged you about this, and it was like, is it too early to say Arcadia's back? I think we settled on maybe Arcadia's on its way back. I don't know, but the last couple of versions of Arcadia have me very excited just for where it could potentially be going, because they're without a doubt the two best Arcadias I've heard in quite a while. So that was really exciting.
Yeah, 2 for 2 in December. Great Arcadias. I think this one didn't quite hit the heights of the one from Goosemas, but still really, really strong and two of the best versions we've seen the last few years. Peter was trying out some new sound in this Arcadia gym. I feel like it sounded like a chimey doorbell at times, but it kind of just worked. I really enjoyed it. And then there was some extra mustard for sure on the outro of this, giving me all of like the peak 2021, 2019 festival circuit energy outros to Arcadia. So really fun listen. Well worth a listen if you haven't checked it out yet.
Yeah, I agree 100%, especially that outro. It really stands up. They added a little bit of tension right before coming back to it, which I really feel like when they did come back, it just hit that much harder. Really dig this Redbird too, though. Cool, kind of jazzy start, kind of sauntering rhythm from Cotter. And then they hit this almost like 2001 space where they kind of break the formula for a second, but then they bring it back to this cool jazzy prog like peak with Pete just hammering everything out all at once. This cool progression on piano, and Rick takes these incredibly like unconventional runs, and there's a guitar switch in there too because there was some kind of issue. I'm not sure what, but even that's navigated seamlessly. Probably needed a couple minutes more on it to be like potentially playlist worthy, but I feel like this Redbird's really good, and it'll probably be slept on a little bit.
Yeah, I couldn't tell what was going on with the guitar. I don't think it was a broken string. It looked like it was like a tuner issue. Like maybe one of the tuners just got loose and broke and needed a tune up real quick. But yeah, nothing really stuck out to me so much about this Redbird outside of the fact that just Redbird's awesome and this is a standard version of it in my opinion and it just still slaps, justifying its existence as my favorite song to listen to in the catalog.
It may very well be like outside of like Big Modern, which has been around like way less time, like the most consistent jam. Like you're almost always going to get, I guess, like decent, I would say, is the floor for Redbird, and nothing ever goes below that. So really, really good stuff there. And then, exciting stuff with Lowrider getting played for the first time. I definitely would be a fan of that staying in the rotation. It was really cool. They did it a little bit different than they have with other covers because Peter was like doing his like best deep guy vocal impression for this one to back up Rick, and hadn't really seen that before. So it was a really cool combination, and their voices actually worked really well in that style. And then Centerman just continues to be like the biggest dance party, especially with everything Peter's added in terms of looping and synth play and effects. It just keeps leveling up even further. And they only played it, I think, 4 times this year, but I would love to see it a ton in 2025 because it just keeps getting a little bit higher.
Yeah, I gotta disagree with you on Lowrider. If I'm being honest, it just did not hit for me, and I'm kind of glad it wasn't one of the bonus balls that
Oh
was pulled
no.
during bingo. Being totally honest, it just it just didn't hit for me. Really weird, the voice reversal where you usually have Rick doing the deeper voice and Peter doing the higher voice on the harmonies, and they flip-flopped, and Rick's doing this falsetto thing, and Peter somehow has, like, the deepest voice on earth, and they cut Redbird a little short to play this and then get into a epic Cinderman, but I would've just taken the extra time on Redbird.
Well, hey, we can agree to disagree. That's okay.
Yeah, I'm glad that they wanted to bust out some of the covers they didn't do from Goosemas, and I'm glad it got played, but I just don't think I need to see it again, me personally, but if I do see it, I will also have a great time.
Yeah, no, totally. Of course. Absolutely. The floor with Goose is great, so we're good either way.
Not to be a negative Nancy.
No, not at all. No one would ever say that.
Yeah, we missed Festivus, had to get into a few grievances here, but the Centerman was awesome, just nailed the assignment. Like, they were gonna do Engborg in the Centerman, which would have been even better according to the posted set list or the paper set list, but man, this is just a dance party, nailed the New Year's Eve assignment. Great way to end the set. Only complaint would be the guy who was whistling incessantly on the soundboard recording. Like, we're not at a dog park, dude. Why are you doing that to ruin our recordings? Festivus.
This wasn't planned, folks, but yeah, the airing of grievances, it's happening. Strap in. No, but yeah, definitely I saw a lot of people complaining about that.
Sorry, not sorry.
He's not sorry. He's not going to apologize, and I don't think he should.
Come on. Like, what are we doing here?
Any thoughts on this encore? Interesting to choose Give It Time here. Obviously a great feel good song, but
Yeah.
interesting.
You're playing in a basketball stadium, sing along, makes sense. I think it was originally supposed to be Turned Clouds, which would have been a really interesting set listing there too. But I'll take Give It Time. Great tune.
Yeah, I guess like there's no way for me to complain because at the bare minimum, we're just getting lots of variety with these set lists. I'm not going to say everything is like exactly as I would do it or works perfectly for me, but I'm always going to be one that errs on the side of variety is a great thing. So keep mixing it up, Goose. I'm here for it. So if nothing else, then we can move on to night two, which is just overall a bit crazier than night one, obviously, with that being the actual holiday of New Year's Eve. So we start off with a pancakes, everything must go, and drive. The Labyrinth, I only have eyes for you, which I only have eyes for you is the first time played by the Flamingos. Slow ready, tumble. And then set two is where things go really crazy. Eye to Eye from the Goofy movie, if you're not familiar. Hunger Sight. Big Modern comes back. Flow Down, just the intro though. Don't Leave Me This Way, partial. Hot Tea, Thatch, and then an encore Factory Fiction. So kind of a crazy set. Where do you want to start, Alex? Maybe with set one?
Yeah, I think this might be one where, in lieu of highlights, we kind of just go song by song because everything is pretty
Yeah.
unique about this set, even if there's not necessarily as much on a per song basis to talk about. But we get started with pancakes, and you get the claps coming in. And you're like, oh man, we're starting on a jam. And it really felt like it was going places, but again, their eyes were bigger than their stomach in terms of what they wrote on the set list. I think this is one of those stands that would have benefited from 3 nights with all the songs they wanted to play, and they're trying to squeeze them into 2 nights. But we got a short version of Pancakes here, but it hit one great peak, and it was awesome. Anchored by Peter, kind of locked in on these rhythmic, percussive piano shots while Rick was playing this dreamy, shrilling riff around it, and it really felt like it was going to go the distance once it hit that peak, and it got cut short. But hey, we had to get into EMG next. But any thoughts on Pancakes before we roll into the set?
Yeah, not too much. I mean, it was a very solid pancakes. I feel like most pancakes are pretty solid though, but yeah, it was a really fun up tempo major key romp to get things start off. It was good as a tone setter, I feel like, but not a ton to dive into improv wise anyways. But what about the CMG?
Again, suffered from the same affliction, similar to the affliction that was from Pancakes, but also from Arrow on night one, where the jam immediately just hits the ground running and it warps into this like crooked, sinister space that we've seen out of EMG sometimes, even though it's like the most uplifting song ever. Peter and Rick are kind of sparring against each other with these dissonant keys and guitar, and it almost evolves into what maybe is a prelude to the end of the night. It sounds kind of like a Factory Fiction jam at times, and was really ripping along. And we just kind of peter off back into the main EMG outro and get the set list moving. So they had a lot of songs they wanted to get to, and they explored some cool space on this, but another one that would have benefited from another 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, the first 3 of this set were pretty brutal for me at the time. Obviously, all of them pancakes, everything must go and drive. They're all usually typically huge jam vehicles, something, songs that you build a set list around, being huge and enormous. So when you don't know necessarily like what the roadmap forward looks like or where Goose is going to take things, it was a tough pill to swallow that all of these were cut short. But what we got from Everything Must Go was absolutely awesome, super brooding and atmospheric. And it was truly some of my favorite playing from Rick. Just all the flourishes he has, all the different ways that he finds to navigate away from and to tension builds was just so impressive. And then we get ripcorded out of it and into like one of the shortest drives I've ever heard as well. So they do make it up to us a little bit later in the set, but I loved everything I heard on this Everything Must Go. And if it was like, 8 to 10 minutes longer, it was definitely shaping up to be like an all timer. But alas, it was not to be.
It's kind of just like the theme of the run, I feel like. Really great concepts and stuff, but just not enough time explored. And that's okay. This is supposed to be a dance party celebrating the new year, but if you're looking for jams, maybe it wasn't your favorite set of shows, but still a great time to watch live.
Yeah, and at a bare minimum, constantly surprising, but both in set list construction and what songs we're getting. So they definitely weren't boring. I don't want it to sound like that. So and speaking of, right after this pretty short drive, which if you want to throw that in here as well, if you have any commentary on that, please do. But it goes into the labyrinth, which is obviously a rare treat. So anything that you have from Drive or the Labyrinth?
Yeah, man, I really thought that this was going to be an epic drive, especially because Cotter's first live jam was that amazing drive from the cap, and it felt like it was going to be a nice bookend. And it got started, which in retrospect was obviously just a transition into the labyrinth, but it's just like this cool, dark, atmospheric space, fitting the Eyes Wide Shut theme for sure. Almost sounds like it could have been on the soundtrack,
Definitely.
going right into the labyrinth, which rare tune. People are very polarized on it. I'm a fan. It's a beautiful piece of music. But if you're going to cut a jam down to play a rarity like this, and people were obviously excited for it, I think it's okay. It just, man, Drive is just such a good jam song, man. That hurts a little bit. But Labyrinth is a nice consolation.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it's actually like one of the cooler labyrinths to me specifically because of what you were saying. That outro from Drive kind of melding into the beginning of Labyrinth. It's absolutely awesome. So yes, I'll repeat. I was very disappointed by the length of the first 3 because they all had so much potential, but at the same time, it also created a unique intro to Labyrinth, and it ends up being a pretty noteworthy version because of that. And then they drop another surprise on us. They hit "I Only Have Eyes for You" by the Flamingos, which super surprised me. It's one of my favorite songs from the 1950s, and I don't know that many songs from the 1950s. It's just like, where did they even think of these ideas? Like, I feel like I'm fairly knowledgeable about music history, but like, it's just like what even inspires these choices? But it was just absolutely epic. They nailed every single part of it. They found a way to take the core of it and not change it too much while also modernizing it and making their own. One of the more memorable covers I can remember in recent memory just because of how out of left field it felt.
Yeah, the only connection I could really make was if it was Eyes Wide Shut theme and there's eyes in the song, and also they just rode on flamingos at Goosemas and it's the flamingos. I was just kind of pulling at strings there, but we're gonna change the band name to Flamingoose, obviously, because we're a flamingo based band now and we're flamingo fans.
Oh, I love it. That's amazing. I don't think you're pulling at strings either. Those are great insights. I think both could be in play.
Yeah, but like you said, this cover hit so hard for me compared to the Lowrider from Night One. I think it could stick around for sure. It It's one of those songs that's just a total vibe, but then it morphed into a really energetic outro solo by Rick, really adding some energy after the Labyrinth, which has its ups and downs. So I think it was kind of a nice palate cleanser from just some beautiful composition into just vibes to take us out on the set one.
Definitely, and the vibes don't stop because we have our namesake, Slow Ready, and Tumble to close out set one. So what do you think here?
Really nice to see Slow Ready not as a set closer. Again, interesting set listing going on. And I'm still reeling from Money Ready. Obviously, we got to still rework on our rebrand of the podcast here. That will totally be coming out within the next 10 to 30 years. But Peter's been playing the guitar on the jam here. Now that he's got the arpeggio locked in, the arpeggiator jam, and it's really taken the song up a notch here. I think it's just fantastic. Again, nailing the assignment of the dance party for New Year's. Everyone's having a good time. I think we picked a great podcast name, buddy.
I concur, but I'm open to the rebranding as well. I thought that was an inspired choice, so like what I'm good either way. This was a very interesting spot for Slow Ready. I'm still like kind of processing and digesting if I like it in this spot or not. I'm not sure. I do like the variety is continuing here with the set list building, but also I really thought that this tumble was another example of like a few more minutes and we're really starting to take things off because there was a lot of interesting things in the tumble. Had a very good first funk section, which most of them do, but it also had a lot more, I felt like, of the disco stylings. Maybe that's a little bit of a hangover from Goose Miss. Some of those are kind of sticking around and hanging around. If so, I'm all for it. Lots of interesting, Volpek, Corey Wong, guitar stuff from Pete and Rick that they were doing really well together and kind of pushing each other together. And they slide into this like incredibly again, the transitions are just so perfect, but the way that they slide particularly from one section of the jam into like this just absolute dance party to finish it off, just really really good stuff.
Yeah, it's the year of Tumble, baby. You got to play it the last show of the year. And they got into that funk mode, like you said, they often do coming out of the main portion of Tumble. And they just kind of stayed there and locked in and layered on it. Want to shout out Cotter and Jeff on this, especially Jeff. I got to give him a huge shout out because lately he's just been so kicked up in the mix and adding so much to these songs, in my opinion. Just a really great, compact, fun dance party. Again, that's kind of just been the theme of these shows, in my opinion, to end the set on a high. I also want to shout out real quick our rebrand we talked about. It's going to be a Money and Ready rebrand, but also going to be a very expensive, money costing rebrand if we change all of our logos. So again, 10 to 30 years is the plan. We'll see if we get there.
I love the plan though. I love the plan. And yeah, definitely. I said it earlier on like that draconian. Jeff is doing an amazing job lately, especially of giving the jams a center and a home. And a lot of times, especially when things pick up in intensity and become a little bit more chaotic, I find Jeff to be an incredibly grounding source for the band. And it's also making the jams that much more powerful because if things do get a little bit crazy or complicated between what Rick, Peter, Trevor, all of them are doing, Jeff can kind of find a way to keep things grounded and centered. And it's been really just, we keep talking about it, but the growth from every single member in this band, the jamming is just becoming so mature because everyone is helping each other to make the end product just so much better. So
I was just going to say that's such a great point by you because I was kicking myself just like 15 minutes ago. I didn't mention it, but Jeff has been such an anchor on so many of these songs from this New Year's run. Like, is just so prominent, and he's kind of just holding things together in his own way. And I just thought that was a really astute point by you. So thanks for letting me bring up my point I forgot from 15 minutes ago.
here for you, buddy, always. And maybe one of the biggest things of the run for sure. We're starting off set two. I kind of want to just let you run here and get your thoughts on this because you are the one that introduced me to the Pizza in the Park show, the only other show that Eye to Eye, the set two opener, was played at, and I listened to that show I don't know how many hundreds of times since you introduced me to it. So I know this meant a great deal to you seeing this pop up. What did you think of Eye to Eye coming back?
Well, I first want to acknowledge the huge colossal whiff on the set list post I put together. We try to keep our set list information and names like similar to what's on El Goose and Bandcamp, and so I copied that when we made the set list graphic, and it was literally spelled I like your organ, eye to eye, and credited to Tar Shah, which is totally wrong on the Pizza in the Park show. When we make these set lists live, when we're putting together the graphics, so totally my bad. It is not his song. It's Tevin Campbell's song, and the song is spelled I, letter I, number two, I. So I totally should have done the fact checking. Doesn't help that it was New Year's Eve and was a champagne fueled fun watch. But I will do better. I promise in 2025. Hysterical blunder.
Everyone understands. No one is upset with you. Everyone understands.
Oh, I know. I was cracking up messaging back and forth. People were like, "You guys know this is wrong, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know it was wrong." But I think this is, if there is a Jam of the Year contender here, shout out to our friends at AAT. They've got their bracketing going right now, but I think this would be it. Eye to Eye is such a cool song. Goofy Movie is such an underrated movie. If you're a 90s kid, this meant the world to you. And we got so much better of a version of this than the 2019 version just because Rick's voice has gotten so much better over the last 5 years. And this leads into an amazing 20 minutes of jamming, essentially. We get into like a TED tape style jam to start here. Very Regulus, one in, one out vibes early on. And they ride that wave for a while before we kind of get into this bubbling bass by Trevor and this marimba kind of transitioning us into this scratchy clav octave fuzz driven dance party to close the song out. And I just thought this was just a great ride, and definitely the one song I will be listening to the most from this run.
Yeah, we were messaging obviously during the show. I was super happy for you. I mean, I was really happy it came back too because I'm close to the same age as you, and Goofy Movie was something that I rented from Blockbuster quite a few times back in the day. So I was very happy to see it come back as well, and awesome to see that they gave it the jam treatment. I thought also it was really cool that like in that movie, I think that the character that writes the song in that movie is kind of like maybe like a loose template for like a Michael Jackson type of character, and I felt like in the jam they kind
Mm-hmm.
of matched that energy. Rick had like an almost 80s style tone where it's just got that like high piercing endless sustain, and so I just thought it was really cool how they kind of married those two concepts where the music matched the idea and background of the song. Yeah, just amazing stuff, and it went on my playlist for sure.
This has got to stick around, please, Goose. Like, please play this at every stop in 2025 because that was incredible and should be in the repertoire.
Cough, Milwaukee, cough. I'm just saying, yeah.
Night 2 or night 3 of Milwaukee.
Yes, for Alex, night 2 or night 3 for sure. But yeah, no, just absolutely awesome stuff. And from there, we've got, I don't know, like I kind of feel like I want to introduce these like kind of all in a row because it kind of is like a medley leading up to midnight. Like at the point that this kind of gets started, we're like kind of close to like 11:30 Austin time. So you just got a short hunger site, one of the shortest ones in recent memory, a partial big modern comeback, and then a flow down intro only. And then to set the stage properly, like right as we're kind of leading up to like the moment of countdown, they brought back one of the most popular covers from Goosemiths, Don't Leave Me This Way. They kind of jumped into like the middle end of it and just rode that out through the countdown. And then after the clock hits midnight, they burst into the chorus with all the energy. So, any thoughts on this like giant medley monster mash of songs here, Alex, leading up to the countdown?
I was totally going to suggest we talk through it the exact same way. It's the only way that really makes sense with this medley, but I thought it was a really interesting choice, definitely unexpected and out of left field. When Hunger Sight started, I want to say it was probably closer to like 11:40-ish. So it was like, oh, this is going to be a long Hunger Sight. They're going to hit a peak at the end of the jam and then take it into whatever they want to start off the year with. And no, it short version, and you're like, okay, we're going into Big Modern now. Like they're gonna start off 2025 with Big Modern, their big song from this year, get the year started off right. It's like, holy crap, we're gonna get Big Modern to start the year. This is amazing. And as soon as we're gonna get into that final chorus to finish out Big Modern from night one, we just shift into Flow Down, and it's like, uh-oh. Okay, like, I'm a Flow Down sympathizer. It's a divisive song, though. I think it's a fun song, but I was like, are they really gonna, like, piss off half the fans in the crowd here with Flow Down? But it would be a great troll, like, I'd be here for it. But no, it's just the intro, and the shuffling flow down slows down, and we get into the disco beats of "Don't Leave Me This Way," as you mentioned. Amazing cover from Goose. Definitely now, with a few weeks to reflect, I think the highlight of the covers from Goose, even with the helps of Frank. And it was a great way to say goodbye to 2024. Don't leave me this way, 2024. Great year, but we got bigger and better things coming in 2025. And they nailed the countdown part of it, in my opinion. Slight balloon issues to start, but they started raining down after they got into the bop. And yeah, it was one of those weird adventures you get from Goose sometimes. I was not expecting that for the countdown into the new year, but it was fun. And I think if you're going to pick a cover to go into the new year, that's a great choice.
Yeah, I'll push back a little bit. I don't think it was my favorite cover from Goose, but on the other side of things, I do 100% agree with you that it was a good choice for this. The explosion from the chorus was really, really appropriate right after midnight. I thought it was funny, like in real time, like going through this whole experience with you and our other friends in the Goose chat. Like you're almost like kind of like rationalizing things in real time. You're like, oh, Big Honor's coming back, and then you're like kind of like, okay, that's kind of perfect for midnight. And then it's like, oh, the flow down intro, and then you're like trying to like rationalize, like, okay, well, that's very epitomizes Goose. Like, okay, I can roll with that. But it was just constantly like they just kept subverting your expectations. So I agree, it was like a wild ride to be on with them, but very thrilling and very exciting. And then I think the comfort and familiarity of that disco chorus was nice to kind of put a bow on things, but they don't really like let go of the momentum because after midnight you get a monster hot tea and a monster thatch to close out set two. So any thoughts on pretty large versions of both here to close things out?
Yeah, Hot Tea, great choice to start off the first full song of 2025. They didn't do a ton of exploring on this one. It was just a long, extended Hot Tea dance party, but exactly what the audience needed to reign in the new year. Not one of those versions or jams that you'll necessarily like revisit or anything, but in the moment, like it was a dance party, even in the living room for us to kick off the year, and just a great time. Was a big fan of the choice. And then Thatch, really, really solid jam on this Thatch. I think it went unfinished, but I think that kind of enhanced the vibe of the show. It kind of kicked off the jam on this one following that model from the St. Augustine Thatch, where I made my very divisive rapping pastor reference, which we'll hashtag never forget. A lot of divisive buzz on that. But we pivot into this like gorgeous, heavenly, blissy, ethereal space to close things out. Not what you expect from a Thatch, especially not with the outro going unfinished on this thing. And we kind of leave the jam with the synth left ringing throughout the encore break, which was really cool and just added to the atmosphere. And people were like, "Oh my god, what the heck's going on here?" But I just really love the choice here. If you're not going to finish the song, do something like this.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't have much on the hot tea. I mean, it's a very solid like 19-minute hot tea, but it doesn't do anything like too groundbreaking from other teas. But the thatch was very, very cool. It had like a prog feeling initially, and then like Pete hops on classic piano, and for a little bit there, it almost had like some Weird Fishes vibes before they go into the more like proggy space where Rick has some distortion, and then Pete kind of follows him on synth, and that kind of sets the table for those like dull synth tones just kind of eerily ringing out through the encore break, like you said. I agree. Super awesome choice. Super moody and definitely continued to fit with the Eyes Wide Shut vibes. Like that definitely you could picture being a part of that movie or in some of the score or something like that. So really cool, creepy, ominous vibes, and also sets the table pretty much perfectly for what the encore was, which was Factory Fiction, which has a lot of those same vibes in common.
Yeah. You knew this or Empress was the most likely contenders to be coming to close out the show. And this version of Factory Fiction absolutely ripped. It felt like we got a few extra minutes out of this thing compared to what we've seen lately through the year. There's like the mid song jam that felt like it got extended out a little bit because Rick like hit God mode and was just absolutely killer and could not miss. He was like shredding the fastest I've heard him shred all year. And if this was a sign of what to expect in 2025, and I fully expect that it is, that 2025 is just going to continue the insane trajectory of this band and be their best year yet. But getting back to the song, it was just the best way to close out the show. We love Factory Fiction, and it makes me wish the song was played a little bit more than it is just because this was so epic and everyone deserves to hear it. But also nice for it to be rare and special like it is.
Yeah, totally agree. Not a ton to add there. Factory literally slaps 100% of the time. And if you're ever at a run that closes the factory, you know when you're leaving that you were just at a special run. So there's something really cool about that. I would like more opportunities for all of us to get it and just have it in our lives a little bit more often than we do when you're following them around on tour. But like I said, I see both sides of it. I do like having it as a special capper to special weekends. So that's neat as well. But I really just love how they married. It's not technically a transition, but it almost kind of is that ominous vibe coming out of Thatch into Factory Fiction. Just shows a little bit more about, like, to your point, how much Goose keeps growing and improving. And with everything we've seen over the last couple months in this fall tour, like, how can 2025 not be their best year? The improvement just keeps coming in waves. So absolutely perfect and amazing capper to the year.
Totally. You nailed it. Perfect way to end the year and really fun set of shows. I don't think it'll be shows that are reflected as fondly as Goosemas was, but they were perfect for the occasion. So I think again, Goose just continues to nail the assignment in terms of knowing what to do when for any given time of year, occasion, part of a tour, how to kick things up and keep things interesting.
Yeah, 100%. I can't do it any better than you just did. So this kind of wraps up our New Year's recap here, but we do have a couple fun topics coming up for you. So, Alex, do you want to tell the folks at home a little bit about what next week's episode is going to be like?
Yeah, so next week we're going to reflect on the amazing year that was 2024, doing a Goose 2024 yearbook. There'll be a lot of like fun, silly topics in there. We're going to be treating it like a high school yearbook. So hopefully you enjoy that. And then Mike has a really special episode topic coming up in a few weeks that we'll need your help with. So I'll let you explain it since you're so much more succinct about talking about these things than me.
Oh, no way, brother. But yeah, in 2 weeks, our plan is to do a dream set list from the 2024 version. So this is going to kind of work in two parts. We're going to send out something here within the next few days, week, to let you all kind of help us choose the order of the set list. You'll be able to pick like the slots, what songs go where, what's the set one opener, what's the set two opener, what's your encore closer, things like that. And then you can also let us know versions that you would strongly advocate for as being the best versions of those songs from 2024. And then we're going to kind of, hopefully with your help in the community, come together is our best 2024 dream set list with all the best versions of songs that Goose did last year. And yeah, really excited to see and get the feedback from you all, what see what choices you have, what things everyone is favoring. So obviously kind of inspired by, I'm a huge fan of the Always Almost There Jam of the Year bracket. Me and Alex are kind of working on our picks right now to be able to participate in that event, and excited to bring a different kind of event as well that we hope you have a lot of fun with and we're looking forward to also.
Yeah, just a little spin on it where we're factoring in set listing and slotting and just kind of what the dream show would be, not necessarily the best jams, but just the best show. So be a fun time. We got a ton of awesome ideas for topics throughout 2025 as well, along with recapping shows. But we're really looking forward to the new year and really hope you all had a special New Year's to ring in 2025 and have had a safe and happy start to the year.
Yeah, happy new year everyone, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much.
See ya.